running through a forest with an army on your heels. You step into a minefield, each step a gamble with death. As explosions go off around you, you face an enemy who taunts you, only to end up defeating him in a dramatic showdown. Chapter 42. I groan at my wake and I roll as I stretch. I peek my eyes open and saw that it was the next morning. I was surprised that I had slept for like 24 hours. My body has been through a lot this past week. I released a yawn and turned to my side. I frowned when I saw an empty less space. Where is he? I heard the rustling of papers being moved around. My eyes followed the sound and saw Oz at his large with papers surrounding him. His hunched figure and his hand scribbling things quickly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said hesitantly, but he did not answer. Whatever he was doing, he was in a deep concentration. I got out of my bed and slowly came to his side. I laid my hand softly on his shoulder, and his head whipped towards me. There was a slight pang in my heart when I beheld his state. He had such dark circles around his eyes. His 5 o'clock shadow was coming through and his hair was arranged in all sorts of directions. I stroked his cheek with the back of my hand in a caring manner. Oz, I said gently, what are you doing to yourself? I cannot rest till I know exactly what Vlad is doing. I need to plan for everything. Even his voice was raspier than usual. Let the others help you. You can't do everything on your own. You have people who are willing to die for you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Please, you won't be of any use to anyone if you don't rest. Because I stumbled backwards in a fright as Oz abruptly stood up with his fists at his sides as he shouted. You don't understand. I don't have time to fucking rest. The others don't know shit about how Vlad thinks. He was my best friend. So don't stand there and tell me what to fucking do because you don't anything. I stood there speechless. My heart was pounding at the sight of him. I was afraid. Oz was not himself. He has let himself drown in this. Not even I can save him. I gulped as I became nervous. I was hurt, but I also was the Iris I first was when I came here. I've changed. I've grown. I am RSS mate because the moon goddess knew I could handle it. That I was strong enough. So in handling it, he just stood there, breathing heavily. I slowly walked towards him as if I was a lamb walking to a lion. He stared at my every movement. I stopped right in front of him and he was looking down at me. I could see the storm in his eyes and all I wanted to do was calm it. When people see darkness or chaos and true, and it is only great power or the most thought-out actions that can stop it. I don't believe that. I think it is the small things. The simple things that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of affection and love. A simple kind word. A simple hug. A delicate kiss. The small actions are the ones that are most significant. I laid the palm of my hand over his heart and he did nothing to push me away. I stood on my tippy toes since he was so tall. I leaned in and pressed my lips to his cheek. I felt his jaw tense. But it didn't hinder me at all. And then I gently whispered to him. Everything you need to win this war is already in you, Oz. I stood back and walked away from Oz. He didn't say anything to me, but his eyes followed me to the door. I turned around and said, I'll ask Donnie to train me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And then I leave, closing the door behind me. Let's try it again, Donnie said. I groan as I get back up. We've been doing this for hours. Donnie, he gets back into position. And yet you have not improved. I scowled at him and he raises his hands submissively. I was joking. I rolled my eyes and got back into position. You'll know one day and gotta kick your ass, I said with a smirk. Donnie snickers. I'd love to see you try. He goes in with a stab. I block it with the forearm of my dominant arm. I ram my fist on the side of his ribs, which would possibly bring damage to the kidneys. Donnie was took by surprise that I actually succeeded. The asshole. Why would it be so surprising? I jump up on his shoulders. Work my thighs around his head. And yes, before you make a comment, I agree also. When Donnie first taught me the move, I was like, WTF. It's more of a sex position than a fighting one. Continuing with the training, I had my thighs locked around his head and dropped my weight back with a force that could cause me to flip Donnie over. Imagine me doing a backflip. Now imagine me doing it from Donnie's shoulders. Now imagine me flipping him over as I do the backflip, causing him to land on his ass. I turn around and grab his head to pretend to break it. But Donnie catches my hands and pulls me forward, which made me flip in front of him. I land on my feet, but I skidded back. Donnie already was charging me, and to my shock he fully tackled me. Like fully, no holding it back. The air was pushed out of my lungs, making me gasp. He was on top of me. I raise my fist and punch his face. He snarls in frustration. He grabs my neck and applies pressure. My instant reaction was that I couldn't breathe and therefore was going to die. But I cleared my mind. I wrapped my legs around his waist and I used my body weight to roll us over so that I was on top. The movement caused Donnie's hands to loosen. I blocked his arms down and I just kept punching and punching and punching in my empty face. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patient enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patient enthusiasm. You win. All thoughts of violence left my body and I was overjoyed. I stood up from Donnie. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patient enthusiasm. I said excitedly. Was I good? Donnie got up and cracked his neck and chuckled. Yeah, Lil, you were pretty badass. I raised my arms, yes. Dylan came walking out with a cigarette. It's too early to be this happy. I would appreciate if you just wallow in hopelessness and despair till at least 11 am, and then you can be all sunshines and rainbows. Donnie snorts and rolls his eyes. Just because you're constantly in despair. Dylan takes another drag of his roll of smoke. And your point is? Donnie waves his hand away as if dismissing Dylan altogether. I'm gonna go head for the shower, Lil. Let's practice again tomorrow. Same time. Sure. Donnie left, leaving Dylan and I alone. Dylan took another silent drag into his lungs. I came and plopped on the seat next to him. You always have to torment Donnie. Dylan chuckled. Torment? He shook his head. If that is what real torment is. It looks like a fucking holiday from my view. I tilted my head. What do you think torment is then? Dylan inhales another cloud of smoke. Torment is. His eyes glazed over as if remembering something. Torment is a purgatory on earth. It is the suffering of one's regrettable actions that forever haunt a soul until it is fully cleansed. I gulped as a chill went down my spine. Is that what you think you're in? You're torment until you're cleansed. He nods his head confidently. Oh yes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patient enthusiasm. I am in for deep cleansing from the gods. When will you stop being tormented? When will you be fully cleansed? Dylan chuckles with no trace of humor. If anything, you could feel the pain in his joyous laugh. How could you understand? Little Iris. His eyes finally focused on me. His eyes scan my face. He raises his hand and cups my cheek and ran his thumb over it. I envy you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patient enthusiasm. Your heart shines bright. I wish I could have it. But I can't. But at least, I could have a good look at it before I die. You're not going to die, Dylan. At least not before you feel fully cleansed, right? He smiles sadly and laughs. Oh, little Iris, there is no ending to my torment, because my soul will forever be dirty. Why? I cautiously ask curiously. Dylan smirks. I stole the very thing that made Anne, my sister, who she was. I stole her life. He paused for a moment. You see, I am half a necromancer. Not fully a wizard or witch or whatever the hell you want to call it. And because of that we were born under abnormal circumstances. In my world, when it comes to witchcraft, everything has a balance. Nature always figures out a way to balance itself again. And that happened with me and might win. So what happened? Me or my sister had to fight for the full ability to do witchcraft, and because we both possess only half of it, we had to battle in order to possess the other, so then one of us could be a full witch as well as necromancer. I gulped. So yes. I was the stronger twin. I almost killed her. She was left as a human. I sucked all of the immortality out. Tears formed in his eyes. She was left so weak. I did that to her. To my sister. My sweet, sweet Hannah. I laid my hand on his shoulders. Dylan, it's not your fault. It was always going to happen. It was an inevitable event. You can't hold that over yourself. Yes, Anne became human. But look at her life. She had a great one. Danny was telling me about. She found a husband. She had children and grandchildren. She only ever experienced the most simplest and yet the most precious parts of life. I think the only thing she would have missed is not being able to see her brother a lot. Dylan smiled. Yeah, well, I stayed away for her benefit. I didn't want to remind of what she had lost. I shook my head. It was the magic or necromancy she lost. Dylan, she lost you. Dylan sat there in silence, looking at the ground. He shook his head. You're wrong. It was better for me to stay away. I deserve the torment. I rolled my eyes and stood up from the stone steps. Shut up. Dylan. I spin around with my hands on my hips. Everyone in this damn castle has a past. Everyone in this place is fucked up. Dylan raises his brows in surprise at the fact that I swore. Yes, I swore. I said fuck. So what? Everybody has fucking dirt on themselves. This world would be a perfect place if everybody was clean and pure, but they aren't. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has things that they're not proud of. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some good and some light in all of us. Even you. If you didn't have goodness inside of you, you wouldn't be here to have our SS back. Deal with your past and move the fuck on, or else you're going to live your life fucking miserable. I released a big breath and stood there in silence as Dylan sat there wide eyes. Well, fuck me, Dylan said. He raises his hands and clapped. That was the most sexiest thing I had ever seen in my whole life. I couldn't help but chuckle and groan. Oh, Dylan, you get on my nerves. Now you know how we all feel. S.O.'s Ian said as he came outside with his whiskey bottle. I walked up the steps. I am going to go have a shower, I announced as I left the boys on the concrete steps of the castle. Chapter 43. I came out of the shower feeling clean and fresh. I put some moisturizer on my face and body before changing. Ours was nowhere in sight. I wanted to go find him to see if he was okay, but I don't think he needs me right now. As much as I want to see him and talk to him, I think he needs to be on his own for a bit. Let his mind mull over things. So, for the time being, I put on some leggings and a jumper, leaving my wet hair down to air dry. I went down to the kitchen to find something to eat. 3 hours of working out and fighting can make a person pretty hungry. I opened the door and to my surprise found my cousins sitting at the counter. They all turned their heads and smiled. Haven't seen you around a while. Little cousin, Lee said. Yalkind are busy preparing for a war, I said with a raised brow. Finn shakes his head. What else is new? I feel like we've grown up in it. I grabbed a bowl of cereal because I can't be bothered making anything else and sit with my family at the counter. Family. It's been a while since I've thought of all of them. Yeah. I think we're all pretty familiar with the concept of war, I said before taking a bite. Do you think it will ever end? Will our family ever find true peace? Noah said, frowning with his jaw tensed. Yeah, when we're dead. Finn joked. Leo shakes his head. Shut up. Leo was very sensitive towards Noah. He always was ever since we were kids. We all knew the trauma that Noah went through in his early childhood, and even though he was a really happy child when he came to the pack, he had developed some issues as any normal person would with that background. Noah was still very strong, but he can still be slightly timid at times and sensitive. He suffers with pretty bad anxiety. Theo had always been there for him though. He protected Noah a lot. Finn was a mindless jackass at times, but he still cared. He can be insensitive, but he always had Noah's back in his own way. I feel it like we always go through challenges our whole Noah. Leo said, we will always have something to disrupt our peace, but that is why it is ours to protect it. We fight for our peace and our families. But, at the end, we will. I have no doubt, so you shouldn't either. Noah nods his head silently. We sat at the counter in silence. The silence that comes before a storm. I took a deep breath. Things are going to change again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I think we should be preparing ourselves emotionally and mentally for this, Finn said seriously. What? With war comes death. Noah rolls his head. Finn, this isn't the best time. Why can't we just not think about it? Because, Finn said, it never is the best time. I feel like because we have gone through so many wars in our life, and we come out the other end with no loss. We have this mentality that we're almost invincible, that nothing could touch us. You're saying we shouldn't think like that, Leo stated. Yeah, Finn continued. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we should prepare for one of us or anybody else we love to die. I exclaimed. It's the reality. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There is no war without death. We are no more invincible than the ordinary wolf in our armies. We are just like them, and we might die just like them. I hope to God that it won't happen, but just a precaution, we need to prepare for it or else we will feel even more pain. We all feel silent. I guess he was right. We can't treat this war like we will come out of it magically unharmed and everything will be all as well. We could die. Any of us could. I guess it's a little harder to accept because we don't want to even have the thought of losing someone we love. I agree, Lou said. I think we do need to prepare. Noah nods his head. As much as I don't like it and the thought really scares me. It is the reality. The weight of the realization that there could be a chance of dying really settled on our shoulders. The atmosphere felt heavy. I looked at my cousins around the table. Theo, Finn and Noah. And I think about my other family back at the Blood Moon Pack. All the memories and all the love that came with it. Finn. He turned to me and I asked, what is one of your favorite memories that you always find yourself thinking about constantly? His face scrunched up as he was thinking. His eyes glazed over and they softened as a small grin formed on his mouth. A loving fondness was on his face. The day I finally got to have a mother. Everyone at the counter smiled. We all remember how excited Finn was. I remember, Finn said, wanting a mother so bad. I would see my friends' mums come and cuddle them and give them kisses. I remember seeing other kids get hurt and their mothers would come running to comfort them and hold them. So one day I purposely hurt myself. I had jumped off a tree. I had this idea that if I got hurt, maybe my mother would know and she would come running. So I did. But she never came. I laid my hand on his arm and gave a comforting squeeze. Finn smiles and said, but then, Mia came. As soon as I saw her, she looked like a beautiful angel. But I was still cautious. One night, I had a terrible nightmare. I woke up filled with heart-pounding fear. I felt so alone, knowing my father was the best back then. He wouldn't come, so I accepted the fact that I had to try and be brave. But then Mia came. She wiped my tears away and sang a song. At that point on, she was my whole world. I knew I just had found my mother. I leaned my head on Finn's shoulder. He was a jackass at times, but he was a sweet one, because we are doing all this emotional shit. Noah, tell us your favorite memory, Finn said. I laughed and sat back up. Noah tensed up and looked slightly panicked. Leo leaned forward and said, you don't have to if you don't want to. Noah, there's no pressure. Noah took a deep breath. His eyes were focused as if he was searching through his memories. No, I want to. I think my favorite memory is probably not as impacting or significant to you all because it was normal for you guys. My favorite memory, actually to memories and probably one of the scariest ones in my whole life. What was it? Finn asked as he leaned forward. I scoffed and smacked Finn's arm. Let the guy finish. Noah chuckles. It was when I got to see and feel real grass. Noah's grin broadened into a smile. I remember it was such a weird sensation to feel something soft, green and alive under my feet. It was the best feeling in the world. At that point my mother was still asleep. We had only just got to the pack. And then I look up and I see you guys. All of us grinned as we glanced at each other. I was really scared because the concept of family was so foreign to me. It's only been my mother and I. So the thought of you guys being my family forever, it kinda blew my mind. Then all of my insecurities came flooding in. What if they don't like me? What if I'm too weird? What if I'm not like them? I'm not normal. What will I do if they rejected me? I was shaking like a leaf. Noah said, laughing. But all of those thoughts went away when you guys asked me to play some soccer. You guys introduced yourselves as my cousins. My family. You all didn't look at me weirdly, or with disdain. You accepted me right then, and that as if I had always been your family. Because you were. Noah. You were just lost. Even when you didn't know it. You always had a family. And to be honest, it always felt like something was missing when you weren't there, Leo. Noah's eyes widened. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing pursuits, enthusiasm. Finn said. Yeah, as much as I hate this emotional shit, I have to admit Leo is right. When you came along, it felt like our family was complete. Noah looked a little surprised that everyone was so loving towards him. It made me happy to see him like this. Feel loved and accepted and supported. That's exactly what he needs and what he will always needs. I turned to Leo. What about you, big cousin? Any good memories you want to share? Leo shakes his head. I think every moment I spent with you guys are the memories I find myself thinking about. Obviously we love our younger siblings. But before they came along, it was just us for a bit. Always remember our crazy adventures. Finn laughs. Iris, do you remember when we lead you to that pile of mud? I roll my eyes. We're talking about good memories, Finn, not abusive ones where you used my blindness to your advantage to feed into your obsession with mud. Finn continues to laugh. But you have to admit it, cousin. It's pretty damn funny. You know how it is. Not back then. I look around the table and saw my cousins laughing with each other. I loved them so much. Do you think this is what it was like for our parents? What do you mean? Noah said. I was playing with my cereal, as I said. Like us. The circumstances were under. I feel like it would have been like this when they were in war. I think it was. Before we ever came along. It was just them. It was them and their love for each other. And then we came along and ruined everything. I said, giggling as well as everybody else. Yeah. Leo said. Then we came along and they fought a lot harder because they knew that it was just themselves they had to take care of anymore. They fought for us. Finn said. Maybe we should be doing the same. Noah said. Fighting for not only us and now, but our future. For our children and our children's children. Even though they don't exist right now. They're still worth fighting for. It's still worth fighting for their futures as well as our own. Leo said. I felt admiration towards Leo. As she is becoming more and more of an alpha every day. Everyone sat in agreement. Do you remember our big family dinners where everybody would come together at your dad's house, Leo? He smiled and nods his head. Those were the best times ever. Noah chuckles. I always looked forward to our monthly family dinners. The food was to die for. Why did we even start those dinners? Finn asked. To remind us. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Remind us of what's important. S-O-Z-E-N. As I and Donnie came walking into the kitchen, their faces looking stressed and solemn. We have some news. Ozai said. I went to the market just before. Donnie said. and I was just in one of the shops getting a coffee when I saw some pretty dodgy-looking guys whispering amongst themselves. I overheard them say the name ours, so I decided to try and eavesdrop on them. This isn't good news. I sat down next to the table and got a magazine I was pretending to read. I heard them say that by the time Vlad comes tomorrow, ours is done for. They were talking about Vlad's army. It's like nothing I've ever heard before. I'm not sure if we're gonna make it. Everyone sat silent as they took in the information. The hopelessness was a common feeling amongst us. What are we going to do? I have a plan, we heard a voice say. Our heads spin around and see Oz leaning against the sink with his arms crossed over his chest. I want everyone to gather in the lounge. Grab your cups of tea or coffee or whatever, and then I'm going to pitch my idea of how to kill this bloody bastard. Chapter 40. For we all gathered in the lounge, people taking seats and whatnot. I didn't sit. My legs were too fidgety to sit still, so I stood and leaned against the wall. All stood in front of the roaring fire, facing us all. Has everyone done what's been asked? All of them nodded except Hesozian. I haven't, because I haven't had the chance to go into any bars. However, I will be spreading bullshit like wildfire tonight. Oz nods. Good, because we're gonna need that. He takes a step forward. Dylan here has provided us with some contraption of his. Dylan, you wanna show us? Dylan takes a drag of his cigarette. Yeah, sure. Why not? He stands up and takes his bag off the couch. He opens the tiny thing and took my shock, put his whole arm in it like it was a whole tent inside. Must be a magic thing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Don't panic, because this is only the model, so it's not gonna blow your faces off. Good to know, Eudora said. Dylan brought a flat plate looking thingy. He raises it up to present it to everybody. This is a mine, but my version of it. I was very, very stunned one day when I thought of this. Dylan began to giggle. Oh, good times. He waves his hands, dismissing himself. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was thinking. Dylan pitched his idea of using his mines in the overall battle plan. His ideas were actually pretty good. Good enough to impress Oz, which says a lot. After Oz had told everyone the general plan, he assigned people to do certain jobs for the day in order to prepare. By the end, people knew what they were doing and dispersed. Everyone. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Oz didn't assign me to any jobs, probably because he thought it would stress me out, and as much as I am stress, I think I would feel worse if I was doing anything. Oz had left the room without saying anything to me. I wasn't hurt by it, which was surprising to me. I feel like the Iris from a few months ago would be devastated if Oz did something like that. But I guess I'm not her anymore. Or maybe I am just a more grown version. I let Oz go. He knows I'm here to talk. So I'm going to wait until he decides to come to me to talk. For the time being, I went outside and saw Donnie and Desozian carrying some shovels into the woods. Hey, I called out. They came to a halt and turned around. As I walked toward them, I said, "What are you guys doing?" "We're digging the holes for the mine," Ian said. "Why, can I come and help?" Donnie and Ian glanced at each other. "Are you allowed?" Donnie asked. I raised my brow. "What's that supposed to mean?" Donnie shrugs his shoulders. "I dunno. Hasn't Oz assigned you to anything else?" I rolled my eyes. He hasn't told me anything. And besides, he doesn't decide what I can and can't do. Ian chuckles and turns around. "Well, come on then. We've got an extra shovel." I smiled triumphantly and walked with a skip in my step as I followed the boys. Do you remember that feeling when you were a little girl and your brothers finally let you hang out with them? I felt like that. We shifted into our walls and ran for a couple of hours. We finally arrived at the place where Oz wanted the war to happen. We shifted back into our human forms and grabbed a shovel. So is there a certain pattern or area that we're supposed to dig? I asked the boys. Donnie took a piece of paper out from the back of his pocket and made his way over to me and revealed what was on the piece of paper. It was a layout of the area. You see here, this is where Vlad will come from, and at this point is where we are going to draw them in. I pointed to an area on the map, so when they follow you want the minefield to blow up. Yup. I suppose Ian said. Now it's time to start digging. I grabbed a shovel and stuck it into the ground, breaking the earth up. It felt good to do some active work. After a while I saw Dylan and Eudora and Oz AI arrive in a truck. They opened up the back and began to carefully distribute the mines and the holes we were digging. Hey Donnie, I asked since he was the closest person. He said while breathing heavily. What happened between Oz AI and Eudora? His brows raised in surprise. Who told you about them too? Dylan, I said with a knowing smile. He rolled his eyes. Of course he did. He loves his Craig. Donnie stuck his shovel in the ground and said, as I couldn't do the whole mate thing. How could he not? A cheers a hellhound. Wouldn't it be like a relief? A comfort to have somebody? Donnie chuckled. That's what you'd think. But no, not with us A. As A is a very closed-off person. He hardly shares anything to anybody. Even us. Eudora couldn't handle it either. Having a mate that didn't talk to you, didn't show any affection and didn't make any effort to change. I threw the dirt to the side and continued to dig deeper. Why is I so nice and kind? I could never imagine him like that. Donnie chuckles. Yeah, I know. He doesn't seem like it. But he is. She was emotionally starved by Ozai. He wouldn't talk to her about anything. He would avoid subjects she would try push on. He kept things very shallow. But why? I don't actually know. What I've always thought is he found his own comfort in having no real intense emotion. He was always trying to be so righteous, so good. But as a hellhound, you have the urge to do bad stuff. He hates himself. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He hates himself to the very core. I think that's why he locked a part of himself away so that he could cope. It was his defensive mechanism that protected himself from the hellhound inside of him. A UADRO, a threat, and that comfort he had with having no emotions. So did he not care about her? Donnie scoffs. Of course he did. They were mates. They were made for each other. Destined for each other. As I just knew that he couldn't give Eudora what she wanted with the way that he was. He knew he could end up seriously hurting her. So he rejected her. I felt sad for his AI. Even in his darkest of days he was always thinking of others. But what he also didn't know that he made a mistake. Eudora could have helped us if he just told her what was going on. But I guess it is hard to deconstruct a defensive mechanism that you have cemented in your mind. What about you? Donnie? What about me? Are you ever going to give her memories of you back? Donnie stopped digging and leaned against the handle of the shovel. She's old. Very old. I think her time is nearing. If I get out of this alive, I want to give her memories back. I want her to know my face and for us to talk and laugh like old times as a send-off. That sounds like a good plan. Donnie, since we're on this relationship topic, Donnie said as he continued to dig. How are things with ours? I took a deep breath. Things are a little tense, but I think there's no issues between us. It's just this whole damn thing with Vlad. Ours is dealing with a lot right now, and I understand that. He puts the whole world on his shoulders and thinks it is only ever his responsibility to carry it. He doesn't accept help from other people easily. Donnie chuckles. No, he doesn't. If I know at least one thing about ours is that he is a very independent kind of guy. A leader. Leaders think like that. I guess. They always take the burden all on their own. However, their strength can also be their weakness. Tell me about it. I'm letting him think about whatever he needs to deal with right now, and when HES ready, they'll be here to talk. Donnie smiles and shakes his head silently. I stop digging. To my agent extraordinaire, Mwelin Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Then he stops digging. You still amaze me. Lil. I giggled self-consciously. What? You've changed. You've become stronger. More confident in yourself. As hard as the past few months have been, you've come out the other end stronger. I smiled sincerely. Thank you, Johnny, but we haven't come out of the other end just yet. We have to win this thing first. Johnny came and pulled me into a hug and kissed my forehead. Whatever happens, I just want you to know that I think of you as my best friend, Lil. And I am still very sorry about cracking your skull in half earlier in the year. I laughed and pulled out of the hug and playfully his arm. Stop it. That was months ago and I didn't die. At least it's a good story now. Donnie laughed. We stood there in silence, and as I stared at Donnie, my eyes filled with such love. He was there at the very beginning. When I first came here and I was scared out of my mind, he was there to comfort me. And even when I had problems with ours, he helped me see things clearer. He was my best friend. Thank you, Donnie. He frowned and tilted his head in question. Thank you for being you, for everything you've done for me. I don't think I would still be here if it wasn't for you. I'd probably reject Tars by now if it wasn't for you. You made living here a lot more easier. So thank you for always being there. I could see Donnie's eyes slightly shimmer with tears. Are you tearing up? He scowled down at me and quickly rubbed his eyes. No. I laughed and Donnie gave me a cheeky smile. I froze when I felt my body vibrate with tingles. Oz was nearby. I looked around in the distance to see him arrive. His eyes scanned the area until they landed on me. I could see his shoulders relax slightly in what looked like relief. I ignored him and continued to work. I felt the electrifying tingles get stronger. He was coming nearer. And then I saw both of his shoes in front of me. I stopped digging and looked up. Who told you to come out here and dig? Oz asks with no hint of anger. Disdain. Annoyance. Nothing. He had no feeling in his voice. To my surprise, I wasn't hurt by it. I understood where HES at right now. I stopped digging and stand up straight. No one did. I decided on my own. Do you know where you're digging? Donnie showed me the layout. He nods silently. He stares at me intensely as if he was wanting to say something. I waited, but he never did. Hey guys, as Ian said as he approached. Oz and I both gave him our attention. He nodded towards something's behind us. We have company. I walked past Oz and gasped. A couple of meters away I saw my father and my uncles. I ran towards them and I jumped into my father's arms. Papa, I shout, in joy. He wrapped his arms around me immediately. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Lilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My little girl, he yells in joy. It's been so long since I heard my father's voice. I laid my head on his chest and felt a familiar comfort that only a father could ever give. I've missed you so much. My father tightens his hold on me and said, Yeah, I've missed you too. Little girl. I stepped back and felt my cheeks hurting so bad from smiling. I went to my uncles. Oh, my agent extraordinaire. Sol and Noah, and gave them all giant hugs. As weird as it was, their scent was very comforting. They smelt like home. Theo, Finn and Noah came along and greeted their fathers and uncles with a manly hug. As men do, haha. Where are those damn hellhounds? Eddie snarled. I rolled my eyes. Papa, you can't just go talking to them like that. My father scoffs. I'm gonna call them whatever I damn well please. I sighed and took a step back to have a look at the men in my family. They are very dominant and masculine guys. The hellhounds are as well. They're going to clash hard, and I don't want that. Okay, look, I said with a little louder voice until I had everybody's full attention. We're gonna have to set some rules if we want to make this work with as little as drama as we can prevent. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My father crosses his arms and said, What way the rules? I want all of you, and I mean all of you, looking at my father, to respect the hellhounds. I'm not saying you have to be best friends, But I don't want you guys to be fighting all the time. They all stood silent for a moment. She's right, I heard my Uncle Noah say. I sighed in relief that someone ended up saying something. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing, and that is for Iris to be safe and for all this curse shit to be over with, and working with them is the only way. Or else we lose our little Iris here, and I'm not gonna let that happen. I smiled at my Uncle Noah as a thank you. He gave me a nod and a cheeky wink. My father stepped forward in size. I don't like him, but he cares for you. They all do, and I can see. They would do anything for you. I won't argue, or at least I'll try my best not to. I jumped into my father's arms and said, "Thank you, Papa. It must be really hard, but thank you." My father's chest vibrates as he chuckles. I felt a presence behind me. My father lowers me to the ground and I turned around to see the whole gang there. Oz at the very front. He steps forward and holds his hand out to shake my father's hand. My father hesitated and looked down at his hand for only a second. He glanced at me and the clasped SS hand in a handshake. I internally smiled. "Thank you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm for coming. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It is my daughter after all. I'd do anything for her. As would I." Oz said, "You and your man must be very exhausted. I'll have my servants prepare rooms for you and the others." My father nods his head. "I'd appreciate that." Thunder steps forward. "Before we do go though, does this damn magical land have like a bar or something? If we're going into another goddamn war, I'm gonna need a drink. I am very familiar with the bars here, and I do want a little bit of a buzz before possibly dying." Asosian said, "I am right behind you." Dylan said, "Hey, I want to come too." Donnie said, "Well, I could use a drink." Eudora said. I glanced to the side and saw us roll his eyes. "Well, go to the bar for a bit." Everyone seemed more relaxed with that plan made. No more talking or thoughts about war and death. For now, let's just think about here and now. Chapter 45. Dylan took us all to this weird Irish bar in town. It was a nice place. All my uncles sat up at the bar and got everybody a drink. The rest of us sat up on these high wooden tables. I spotted Oz and my father talking in the corner of the bar. It looked like a serious conversation, but both of them didn't look angry and they haven't punched each other yet, which means it must be okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "Aren't you having a drink?" Dylan asked, gesturing to the empty space in my hand. I smiled and shook my head. "No, I haven't really ever drunk any kind of strong alcohol before, and by the look of this place, it doesn't like they serve any juice." "Why are you pregnant?" Dylan asked. I crossed my arms over my chest and frowned defensively. "No, not that it's any of your business." Duo unchuckles and took another sip. "S-O's E in butts in. But you guys are. Like your E. You know. Using protection then." I gulped and was trying to figure out a way to get out of this conversation. "Come on, guys. Leave the poor girl alone. She has enough to deal with right now," Eudora said. I caught Dylan staring at me suspiciously and then he began to grin. "You haven't done the deed, have you?" Eudora's head whips to me and said, "You haven't done it. Why is it such a big deal?" "So what?" To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We've both been busy with this whole Vlad crap that we haven't thought about it. Eudora snickered. "Oh honey, trust me. I think that's all HES been thinking about. I think HES just waiting on you to say the okay." I gulped. "You think so?" I looked over my shoulder at Oz. He was talking to my father still, but his eyes looked at me and I whipped my head back around to avoid eye contact. Eudora put her arm around my shoulder. "Honey, I know so. Is that why HES been so frustrated lately?" "Sexually frustrated." Eudora guided me away from the guys into another table. I know we don't know each other, but right now, me and you are the only females in this damn team. I sighed and leaned back on my chair. Yeah, it's hard being a female sometimes. Eudora laughs and nods her head in agreement. You're not wrong. But look, I know things are tense right now, especially with the whole Vlad thing pressing down on all of us. But just be with your man. I tilted my head a little confused. Does she mean? Her eyes widened and she shook her head. Oh no, I don't mean be with him. Like that. That stuff happens only when you're ready. I mean just be with him. Enjoy each other's company. And enjoy your time with everybody right now. Thanks, Eudora. I'm just gonna go think. Eudora shook her head. No honey. You've been thinking this whole time. Feel instead. Come on. She stands up and holds her hand out. Let's go for a little boogie. I smiled and got up. Maybe she's right. Maybe I do need to just stop thinking. We went to the dance floor, where some of the others were. We started to dance to the beat of the song. Eudora laughs in excitement, but then rolls her eyes. Do they ever play anything other than Irish music? I laughed and raised my hands, who knows. But we kept dancing. It was fun. I closed my eyes and just like Eudora said, I stopped thinking and instead, I just felt. And let me tell ya, it felt good. I was dancing for a while and I was getting tired. I decided set out for this song. I went and sat up at a table and watched my friends and family dance. Seeing them so relaxed made me feel happy. I guess we never really had any time to really have fun together. It reminded me of our monthly family dinners. It felt like old times. I looked back to the corner and saw Oz and my father weren't there anymore. I frowned and searched the room for them, but I couldn't find them anywhere. Hello there, love, said a man approaching the table. I politely said, hello. It's a pretty girl like you sitting all alone for. I pointed to the dance floor. My friends and family are over there dancing. I just got pretty tired and decided to sit down for a bit. The man nodded understandingly. He was a young guy who had light brown hair with a mustache. He was fairly handsome. Kinda reminded me of a cowboy. The name's Trevor. Trevor Arrington. What kind of a name is that? He had his hand out, waiting for me to shake it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said as I took his hand. He held onto my hand for a bit and ran his thumb over it before letting go. I couldn't tell if he was really friendly or actually being a little bit creepy. You have very soft hands, he said, looking straight into my eyes. I avoided his eyes and just looked. Anywhere else? So you're here with anyone? He asked, leaning against the table on his elbow. Yeah, I have a mate. H.S. here somewhere, I said, searching the place again. He holds his hands up and says, sorry, I was hoping you were single. I didn't mean any disrespect by trying to hit on you. Oh, this guy was actually being nice. Don't worry about it. I'm sure there's a lot of girls here that would be happy to be with you tonight. He shrugs his shoulders and looked down at his shoes before his eyes looked at me. But I wanted it to be with you. I gulped and smiled uncomfortably. I didn't really know what to say. He smiled and waves his hands, dismissing lie. Sorry, you'll back off now. I don't mean no harm. I shook my head. It's all right. It was nice meeting you. But in actually waiting for my mate, I said, making sure that there was no room for him to continue the conversation. He gives me a nod with a cheeky grin, and before spinning around and winks at me, I immediately looked away, feeling a little stunned. A guy has never made me feel so uncomfortable in my whole life. I continued to watch my friends dance in joy. I noticed it was getting hot in here. I took my jacket off, leaving me in a black tank top. My eyes scanned the area. Travis was on the other side of the bar, sitting with his friends. He was taking a swig and he was looking right at me. I cleared my throat and searched the place for Oz again. But again I was disappointed that he was nowhere in sight. I sought Arnie on the dance floor. He saw me sitting and he waves me over. I smiled and shook my head. He rolls his eyes and kept dancing. I saw my father come over from a different part of the bar. He sat down next to me. I saw Travis on the other side of the room frown. I internally scoffed. He thinks ain't surely going to get me tonight. Happy to disappoint. How's my little girl? I snickered. I'm not a little girl anymore. Papa, I got her a mate and everything now. My father shrugs. I don't give two shits about your age or if you have a mate or not. You were my little girl before any of that crap happened, and you will always be my little girl after it does too. I don't mind that. My papa leaned against the bar and took a swig of his beer. Your mother and little siblings miss you a lot. I miss them too. Memories of all the family came into my mind, and my heart began to burn a little. Maybe once if this is over, ours and I could stay at the pack for a while. Get away from this damn realm. My father tensed slightly at the mention of my mate. Papa, I know you don't like him. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I really don't like him, Papa growled. I roll my eyes. I know, but please try to understand. Archias, my mate. He was made for me and I was made for him. Archias put you in a lot of danger. You've already almost died under his care. I know that, but all of those things were not in his control. This world is different to the human one. There are so many different factors to consider here. My father gives me a look. You didn't let me finish. Little one. I frowned and tilted my head. Papa put his arm around my shoulder and pulled me to his side. I really don't like him, and you have been in a serious danger ever since you met him. However, as much as all those things are true, I am not blind to the good things I see. I lifted my head from his shoulder and stared at my father. My father's eyes were sad. He knows that being with him has put you in a bad position, but I see that he would do anything to protect you. I see he cares deeply for you. He is gentle with you, and I see without a second thought. He would die for you. That is all a father would want for his little girl. And now I have to learn to let you go. I could see my father's eyes began to get a bit misty-eyed. This is always the hard part of your kids getting a mate. I have to let you go and give the responsibility of loving you and protecting you to him. This doesn't mean I'm not going to be your little girl anymore. Tata. He smiles and nods his head. That's right. I may have to share the responsibility of protecting you with your mate now. But you will always be my daughter. We will always be your family. And you will always have a home to come back to. And my own eyes slightly sting with fresh tears. Thank you, Papa. You have no idea how happy I am to hear this. He smiles and pulls me in for a bear hug. Yeah. I still don't like him though. I laughed and nodded my head. That's okay. Papa, I want a hug. I heard my Uncle Sol say as he approached. Eddie rolls his eyes. Piss off. Solomon, this is daddy-daughter time. You piss off. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Chef my niece, Sol exclaimed, unjustly. I laughed. I missed family. I just pray that everything will work out properly. Stop what you're doing. I stilled when I heard a faint voice. I frowned and looked around. No one was talking to me. Everyone was just having fun and laughing. They are coming. I stood up from my seat and my eyes were searching the place. I still couldn't find anyone that was talking to me. All the background noises faded into nothing as I heard the voice again. Death has come. You are all doomed. You must run. Run. My heart stopped and I felt the blood drain from my face. My eyes look at all the happy faces. They don't even realize yet. I sprint to the stereo and rip it out of the wall to stop the music. Everybody turned to me confused. Everybody, run. The force of impact threw me onto the floor. The explosion hit the building hard. There was a loud drinking as all I saw was rubble, and people screaming and running. I groaned as I stumbled back on my feet. I was getting pushed and shoved as people were running past me in a panic. I coughed as I inhaled the heavy dust that was still freshly floating in the air. All I could hear was the muffled screaming that are ringing in my ears. I reached my hand out to try find my way to one of the people. A large hand comes out of nowhere and grabs my hand tightly as what is putting a large arm around my waist, guiding me out of the place. I already knew exactly who it was. I stumbled out of the wrecked building. Oz cupped my face. His eyes were wide with worry as his mouth was moving fast, but I couldn't hear anything he was saying. You need to get to the castle and get the flower. Slowly my hearing came back. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Iris, can you hear me? Love. I nodded my head. His eyes were looking at my body, making sure there were no other injuries. I shake my head and take a deep breath. My mind was getting clearer by the second. I grab Oz by his face and force him to look at me. We have to get back to the forest now, or else it might be too late. He'll tell the others. Oz said. He mind links everyone and tells them all to get back home. I shifted into my wolf as did Oz, and we both ran as fast we could to the forest. As we ran, I noticed the others. My uncles and cousins were running in their wolf forms too as they followed us. Oz was leading us all back to the castle. My heart was pounding against my chest. My legs burned as they pushed my body up the mountain. The ground beneath our paws was shaking. I looked back and I almost fell. There was a whole army at the base of the mountain. They were charging. As we were running, Oz raised his head and howled as loud as he could to alert our army. I could hear the sound of branches snapping, trees creaking, and twigs breaking. There, in the trees, I heard Oz mind link us all. I could see figures jumping from tree to tree near us. I felt Oz bite the back of my neck and pull me closer to him as we continued to run. It's happening. It's all happening now. It has begun. A H. A creature jumped out the tree right at me, tackling me to the ground. I had no idea what the hell it was. I had a basic idea of combat, but this is a whole different playing field. I have no idea what this thing is. Its eyes were black as charcoal. Its skin was a dark metallic color. It was a monster in the flesh. He roared like a beast. I snarled at the thing. I saw Oz stop running and turned around. He sprinted toward the creature. Oz bit hard into the monster's arm. He roared in pain and anger. Oz ripped him off of me and threw him yards away. With his head, Oz helped me up and pushed me forward to keep running. I could see the forest ahead. I noticed that the wolves in our group, my uncles, cousins, Johnny, S.O.'s Ian and as I surrounded I as we ran. On my flank I saw two white, black and white leopards. Both have glowing purple eyes. They were never wolves. I look up at the forest ahead and I pray, please let us get to the forest. Chapter 46. As I was running hard, but not without making sure Iris was right there with me. I always sensed her presence, which assured me she was running just as hard, if not harder, than me. I looked up at the forest. All we need to do is get through the forest where our army is. If we get through there without any problems, we may have a chance at this. I heard a howling wince and then I felt Iris's presence distant. I instantly stop and turn around. I sprinted back to Iris without question. There was a metallimus goblin on top of her. They were beastly things. I snarled and roared out before I opened my mouth and sunk my teeth into its side. It roared in pain. I used my body weight to rip him off of Iris and threw him a long ways away. I quickly checked if she was okay, which she was. I helped her and pushed her in front of me to sprint with the others. I looked behind me and felt a feeling of dread as I saw Vlad's army. That's a lot of allies. They looked like a giant wave of black covering the white snow, and it was coming right at us with the sole purpose to kill and destroy. I sprinted up behind Iris and made sure she was where I could see her. We were getting closer and closer to the forest. I mind-linked Donnie. I'm assigning Iris to you. You are to take care of her in my absence. Am I clear? As we were running, Johnny's side glanced me. I'll protect her with my life. Knowing that all of them had her back made things easier for me. Now I could just focus on Vlad and killing the son of a bitch. Is like a roach. He just won't stay dead. Vampires are fierce creatures. We were natural enemies. But Vlad was unique. He used to be a werewolf, but now turned vampire. He was a man that fully understood how we worked. How we think. Flashback. You have killed Vlad once. You can do it again. I said at the fireplace. It's different this time. A cheers a vampire with the mind of a werewolf. Cheers collected his own power over time. That's a dangerous mix. Yes, you are right. If you think about this logically, he does have an upper hand in that regard. I swirl the gold and drink around my glass. I hope this battle ends well. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I sat down. You won't have to worry about this. We have planned this to the very last detail. I stood up and walked to the fireplace. And what if that's the problem? I don't think it's going to end how you predict it will. He frowns through his glasses. I don't understand what you're saying. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You have lived through centuries. You have been in countless battles. We all have. We've been through hell and came back. You are one of the most ancient creatures of this world. This should be a piece of cake. I look into the fire, the clogs in my brain twisting and turning. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Is belonging to a distant past, a distant memory that is now no longer in existence. As AI stands up abruptly and comes toward me in a very serious manner, he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You will get through this. I stare at him knowingly. Let us prepare for any outcome to this battle. Brother, I fully turn to him and put my hand on his shoulder. Promise me something. His brows were cemented together into a deep frown. Anything. I looked into his eyes and said, take care of my Iris. The thoughts that were running through my mind during that conversation. The reality of what is to come. It was seared into my brain. If Iris comes out of this alive, that will be my victory, Iris. The trees were swinging from sight as more and more of those black creatures were climbing up and following us. My nerves were skyrocketing. One of them charged out at Eudora. She saw it coming. She hissed and snarled at the beast. It was first on top of her, until she rolled around till she was the one on top. She bit into its neck and dripped out its throat. The scene of violence did not hinder me. It almost made me want to fight even more. It motivated me to keep going and to live. I need to be strong for ours. I need to be his strength, not liability. The black creatures began to get more confident and was charging forward from the trees, jumping down, swinging out, all with the intentions of killing. Stay close to me, Iris. Ours mind linked me. Daddy appeared on the other side of me. He gave me a cheeky wolfish wink that made me snicker. One of the creatures jumped out of the tree and tackled ours to the ground. 3 of them charged at Donnie and I from behind us, catching us off guard. I was first knocked to the ground and at first I was scared. But my instinct kicked in. I'm not weak anymore. I released a deep growl and I opened my mouth wide. I extended my teeth and I sunk them deep into the flesh of the beast and dripped it off my back. I felt the blood drip into my mouth and yet I was disgusted by it. It tasted good. It felt good. I liked the feeling of hurting it. And I wanted to do it again. The beast got back up and charged again with a roar. But that did not affect me. I charged forward also. It was very strong. It bit into my neck which caused me to howl pain. I swung my body to loosen its grip. I wasn't here to play around. It landed on the ground and was about to get back up. I used the moment of vulnerability to strike. I sunk my teeth in its skull and ripped off its head. The satisfaction of killing felt like euphoria. I saw ours from a bit away and I knew he saw what I did. We need to keep going. He mind-linked. My eyes scanned the place and I saw all of them fighting. They were all fighting off the creatures. Onda, Noah, Soul and I are going to fight them off. The rest of you go. My father mind-linked everybody. No Papa. I mind-linked him. We need to stick together. There's no time, Lil. Now go. My father mind-linked me. I saw my father and uncle's wolves fighting of the black metallic beasts. Ours appeared by my side and pushed me with his larger wolf toward the forest. I reluctantly leave my family behind. I looked to my cousin's wolves. I could tell they were putting a brave face on, but I could see the concern for the lives of their fathers as well as my own. I pushed the negative thoughts and feelings aside for the time being. I can't think about that right now. We need to get to the trees. We all sprinted hard and we finally ran past the tree line of the forest. I felt more hopefully with that finally out of the way. Now all I just have to do is not get blown up to pieces. We all memorized the mapping of exactly where Dylan distributed all of his mines. One little mistake and I could get blown up. Oz ran in front of me. We were around 5 minutes ahead of them. We got to the bush and shifted back into our human forms. Oz pushes me gently into the bush to get changed with the clothes we placed here. Oz shifted and began to change also. Once everyone was changed into their human forms, everybody got into place. Dylan casually floated up into the trees where he had a plan of his own that would help everybody. Apparently, he had called on his family and friends to come fight with us. I looked over my shoulder up at the castle tower through the trees. My thoughts drifted to the flower. I need to get it. The pounding feet of an army was getting more and more intense. The vibration traveled through my body and pierced my heart with anxiousness. It really had begun. Oz turned to me. Stay with me. Will we stay together no matter what? I nodded my head. I will. He steps closer to me and grabs my hand tightly. I look at everyone. My family and my new family. They were all ready. And so was I. All of us turned around and began running up the forest hills. We pushed ourselves to get to that specific point. Our grip on my hand never loosened. He was running by me, making sure I was okay. I looked over my shoulder and my eyes widened. They've caught up to us. I couldn't see Vlad anywhere. Wouldn't he be at the front of his army? The rest of his soldiers were running. Don't look, Lil Oz said. Just keep going. Until we get to the army. I felt my heart pounding and my legs burning and my mind turning. I prayed that my family were okay. Johnny was on my other side, making sure I was okay too. I stepped on a rock, but it was stable, causing me to fall down. I winced, but get back up. However, something grabbed my foot. I looked down to see a man with a crazy look in his eyes. Vampire. He grabs my foot tight, almost crushing it in his hand. I winced in pain and tried to get his hand off. Oz came also with a crazy look in his eyes. Not today. He yells as he grabs the vampire by its neck and snaps it. Oz grabs me and lifts me up to my feet. Let's go. But my ankle was hurting bad. I didn't want Oz to know else he could end up carrying me, which would make us slower. I just had to ignore the pain. The rest of our friends surrounded us and fought off anybody who jumped at us. I stole a glance behind my shoulder and my breath hitched. They were gaining on us. All we need to do is get to where our army is, without dying. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My eyes recognized the area. We were about to enter into the minefields. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you? Oz shouted, but I already knew what he was going to say. I remembered every step. Don't worry, I shouted back. Oz reluctantly let go of my hand as we jumped from step to step through the minefield. Oz gave me a look of worry as we separated. We all had to go to our own routes that we planned out in our own heads. Don't blow up. Don't blow up. Don't blow up. Don't blow up. I was repeating as jumped from step to step. A loud explosion went off. I stopped and looked behind and I couldn't help but smile. It was working. We were leading them to the minefield. All of them are swarming in. Another one went off. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Oz shouted. He was ahead of me. Move it. I jumped from step to step. I thought I was actually doing pretty good before I was pushed. I yelped in fright. I just made it to the next step. I spun around and my eyes widened. I snarled. He smiles with a wink. Told you I wanted you tonight. I growled deeply. You blew up the bar. He snickers. No. I stood there fuming. Well, you failed in killing me, now it's my turn to kill you. Iris run. Oz shouted from the other end. Travis smiled. They'll give you a 10-second head start. I looked over my shoulder at Oz. He stood there fuming, his eyes glowing green. I should do what he says. I turned back around and faced Travis. But first, I'm gonna kill this asshole. I launched forward, which I think caught him off guard. He didn't expect me to initiate a fight like that. I knew exactly where to step. The problem was Travis was watching too. I pushed him over to catch him off balance. But he quickly recovered. I stepped forward, jumped up, spun around and kicked him right in the face. But before I could even put my leg down, grabs it pulling forward. I shouted in fright as I was about to step on a mine. Travis was laughing while still holding my leg tight. You're cute. I jumped up with the one leg I have, twisted my body and kicked him with it. He falls down, but he uses the force to do a backflip to land back on his feet. I could hear footsteps running this way. Oz was coming. His growl was echoing throughout the whole forest. Travis jumped forward as I did the same, except I jumped up, wrapped my legs around his neck, forced my body backward and dropped him on his stomach. Well, what I felt was his stomach. He was in a push-up position, but with one hand, I could hear his straining rhythm of breathing. He looks up at me and I smile down at him. You're cute. I kicked his arm down, which caused him to land right on top of a mine. Oz grabbed the back of my shirt and pulled me back, when we both witnessed Travis being blown to bits. Oz glares down at me and lifts me up and began running back. Don't you ever do something like that again. He snarls at me. He attacked me and I killed him. I shouted back. You don't do it if it risks your life. He shouts back as he jumps from step to the others. My life is already at risk by being involved in this damn battle. We finally got to the other side. The sound of explosions going off was like music to my ears. He puts me down and grabs my shoulders tightly and shook me to emphasize his words. You do not risk your life unnecessarily. You were supposed to stay by my side. I can fight. I shout. He grabs my hand and we keep running while we still have time. A black beast pops out, but just grabs his throat and drips it out. Like it was nothing. We continue to run. I don't care if you can fight. Oz shouts. I can't let you die again. I refuse to lose you again. So just stay with me and stay alive. What way you mean again? I shouted over the explosions. Just stay with me and listen to me for once. Oz shouts.